Hello, small folk. It's Father Christmas here. And today I have a very special story to share with you. It's the tale of one of my dearest friends in Lapland, a little penguin named Pipsqueak. You see, I've just arrived home after an afternoon's ice fishing on the frozen pond with Pipsqueak, who kindly joined me to keep me company when I realized I had never told you the wonderful story of how a penguin came to live in Lapland. I know you may well be thinking, a penguin in Lapland? Penguins, after all, are known to make their homes at the South Pole, where they waddle around on the ice and swim in the southern seas, not here in the North Pole, where Lapland lies. But let me tell you, small folk, our Pipsqueak is no ordinary penguin. He has a spirit as bright as the northern wishlights, and a heart brimming with adventure. And so, if you're wondering how a penguin ended up all the way here in Lapland, well, settle down and I'll tell you the tale of how Pipsqueak made his way from the South Pole to Lapland. Now, it all began on a bright, clear day down at the South Pole, when Pipsqueak was just a little penguin chick, no taller than a snowball. Unlike the other penguins, who were perfectly content sliding about on the ice and diving into the freezing sea, Pipsqueak had a deep, yearning curiosity. He'd listen in awe to the tales of the other animals that visited the South Pole, the birds who'd fly from distant lands, and the whales who'd sing about faraway places, and wonder what might lie beyond the icy horizon. One day, as he waddled along the snowy shore, he overheard a visiting albatross telling tales of a magical land far, far to the north. "They call it Lapland," the albatross squawked, his eyes gleaming with wonder. "It's a place filled with magical creatures and elves who make toys for all the children of the world." Pipsqueak's eyes widened. "A magical land," he whispered to himself, "with elves who make toys?" His little heart beat faster, and from that moment on, Pipsqueak could think of nothing other than this magical and mysterious place. Day and night he dreamt of Lapland at the North Pole, until with a heart full of courage and a sense of adventure as big as the Antarctic, Pipsqueak made a brave decision. He was going to find Lapland, no matter how far he had to go. The very next morning, Pipsqueak packed himself a little satchel of fish snacks, tucked a feather he'd found for luck under his wing, and set off on his grand adventure. Now, this was no small feat for a tiny penguin. He bravely waddled his way across the icy plains, through flurries of snow and freezing winds, until he reached the edge of the South Pole. There, he hopped aboard a sheet of floating ice and set sail into the vast open sea. For days, Pipsqueak drifted along, watching the whales and the seabirds passing by, each one more astonished than the last to see a lone little penguin floating by. But Pipsqueak wasn't afraid. Oh no, he was full of hope and adventure, and spent his days singing little songs about the magical land he was going to find. One day, a friendly pod of dolphins swam by and noticed Pipsqueak's determined gaze. "Where are you heading, little penguin?" one of them asked, popping up beside him. "To Lapland," Pipsqueak chirped proudly. The dolphins chuckled, admiring his spirit. "That's quite a journey, little penguin," they cried, "but we will help you on your way." And with a gentle nudge, the dolphins pushed Pipsqueak's ice sheet further north, bringing him closer to his dream with each passing wave. Days and nights passed, with the little penguin bobbing along the choppy seas. But with each passing day, bit by bit, Pipsqueak's ice sheet started to melt away, growing smaller and smaller, until there was barely room for him to perch on it any longer. One starry night, it finally melted away altogether. But Pipsqueak didn't mind. With a splash, he dived into the icy waters and continued to swim northward, guided by the stars and the tails of the animals he met along the way. One such animal was a very curious creature indeed, who, living in the Arctic, had never seen a penguin before, and was equally intrigued by Pipsqueak. He introduced himself as Gustav, and was a narwhal, an odd-looking whale with a huge long tusk that protruded from his head. Gustav gladly gave Pipsqueak a ride on his back across the cold seas, using his great tusk to part the waves when the sea grew stormy, all the while telling Pipsqueak stories of the great northern lands he would soon see. Pipsqueak's heart was filled with excitement, and his longing to reach Lapland grew all the more. After he bade farewell to Gustav, Pipsqueak encountered a flock of snow geese, who offered to let the little penguin rest on their backs while they flew further north. Getting tired on the long journey, Pipsqueak gladly clambered on, his flippers holding tight, as he soared through the sky for the very first time. "This is what it feels like to fly," he sang with delight. "Oh, how I wish penguins could!" Pipsqueak felt the wind in his feathers and watched the endless expanse of the blue sea below. Lapland grew closer with every beat of his heart. Finally, after what felt like the world's longest journey, Pipsqueak arrived at the edge of Lapland. He could hardly believe he had made it. Snow fell gently all around him, and a sense of magic filled the air. Pipsqueak waddled through the snow, his eyes growing wider as he took in the wondrous sights. The bustling little village, filled with elves, with golden bells that jingled on their hats. The twinkling lights and beautiful trees lit up like stars. The majestic reindeer trotting by, and the smells. Scents of gingerbread and cinnamon floated through the air. Pipsqueak had found Lapland. All at once, the elves spotted Pipsqueak and gasped in surprise. "A penguin in Lapland?" they exclaimed, running over to welcome him with open arms. "How in the name of all things Christmassy did you get here?" they marveled. Pipsqueak was overwhelmed with joy. He had finally reached the magical land he had dreamed of for so long, and it was even more wonderful than he could have imagined. The elves were just as excited by the new arrival as Pipsqueak was to be in Lapland. They delighted in showing him around and introducing him to everyone, and how he marveled at the magnificent toy factory, the snow-covered elven homes, and the beautiful northern wishlights that danced across the sky just as the albatross had described. And, of course, it wasn't long before I heard a little knocking at my door. When I opened the door, I could hardly believe my eyes. There before me was a little penguin, looking up at me with the biggest, brightest eyes I had ever seen. "My, oh my," I said, crouching down to get a closer look. "And who might you be?" "I'm Pipsqueak," he chirped proudly. "I've come all the way from the South Pole to see Lapland." I chuckled and invited him in, warming him up by the fire and offering him a cup of hot milk. As he sipped away, he told me all about his journey. The dolphins, the narwhal, the geese, and his dreams of seeing the magical lights of Lapland. "Why, Pipsqueak," I said with a smile, "anyone with a heart as brave as yours deserves a place here at the North Pole." And from that day on, Pipsqueak has become a beloved member of our Lapland family. The elves adored him, and he quickly made friends with the reindeer, the husky puppies, and even Mr. Badger, Hopscotch the rabbit, and Bramble the hedgehog, the woodland animals of the enchanted forest. How they all delighted in his adorable penguin waddles, his jolly penguin dances, and his endless stories of the South Pole. Pipsqueak brought a special cheer to Lapland. He'd readily tell tales of his southern home to anyone who'd listen, sharing stories of icy oceans, towering icebergs, and the sparkling constellations that lit up the southern skies. And in return, he learned about the ways of the North, our northern wishlights, the bustling toy factory, and my own rather long and special journey each Christmas Eve. Now, every year, Pipsqueak joins the elves as they prepare for Christmas, his heart full of joy and gratitude. And when the big night arrives, there's few more than Pipsqueak who understand the challenges and rewards of making such a great and adventurous journey. So he's always there to wave me off with his little flippers, cheering me as I head out to deliver presents to children all over the world. He even lets me carry his good luck feather on the sleigh with me too. So, my friends, that's the story of how Pipsqueak, the brave little penguin from the South Pole, found his way to Lapland. He may have started out far, far away, but he found his true home here, where he belongs, among friends and magic. And if you ever find yourself in Lapland, keep an eye out for a little penguin with the biggest heart you'll ever meet. He's usually by the frozen village pond, sharing tales with the elves. And if you're lucky, he'll teach you all the very special penguin dance he brought all the way from the South Pole. Good night, dear friends. And remember, home is where the heart is, even if it's at the other side of the world. Cherry buys for now. Ho, 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 ho.